Sam Kemble of Workforce Delivery Inc. Don't be fooled. Random alcohol and drug testing is lawful in certain circumstances. This report was inspired by an article written by Laurel Binion of Borden Ladner Gervais entitled Teck Coal versus United Steelworkers, yet another unjustifiable random drug and alcohol testing policy. And in this case, there's yet another test for proposing the appropriateness of random testing suggested by the arbitrator that is a slight variation from the previous Irving test. Now, the test proposed is 1. The arbitrator must determine whether the employee's privacy rights were infringed upon by the random policy. If the privacy rights were infringed upon, the arbitrator must then determine whether or not there is a cause or a legitimate need for random testing in the workplace. And this typically involves establishing there's a workplace safety sensitivity to either the job or the work site or both, together with the presence of a problem of alcohol and drug use and abuse associated with that workplace. And thirdly, there's a proportionality analysis conducted to determine whether random testing as a measure would be effective in addressing the employer's safety concerns, and then also to explore whether or not a less intrusive method could be implemented that would be also effective at addressing the employer's concern in lieu of random testing. So I just want to talk a little bit about the separate part of the test, second part of the test, which failed in Teck Coal, which is whether or not there was a legitimate need for random testing in the workplace. And essentially, this is more of just like a factual concern with the case. And in this circumstance, Teck Coal relied on evidence of off-duty conduct that established a work hard, play hard culture. And most of the evidence was almost exclusively reliant on off-duty behavior and anecdotal off-duty conduct to establish that there was a workplace problem with alcohol and drugs. And this is not going to be sufficient, and something that Teck Coal learned the hard way. And as a result, there's another distracting case published, because distracting facts can make distracting law. Now, this would be it would be in contrast to Suncor's recent case on the facts. And Suncor's case is presently running its way through various appeals. And in that situation, Suncor relied on objective, quantifiable data to establish that there is a problem of alcohol and drug abuse at the workplace. So essentially, one takeaway from on a principle perspective is Teck Coal and Suncor both established that employers who attempt to establish a random alcohol and drug testing program with a lack of objective evidence to support the notion that there's an alcohol and drug problem in the workplace are going to have some difficulties should their policies be challenged. And there's a real cost of bad or insufficient data in that regards. However, advocates often cite Teck Coal as establishing that random alcohol and drug testing is unlawful on its face in BC, and that, in my opinion, is taking the decision too far and is not true. And I can see why. I'll get into why Teck Coal is cited as establishing that random alcohol and drug testing in BC is unlawful in a moment. But one key takeaway to this point is Teck Coal puts it to employers to use sound methods for establishing and proving that there's indeed a problem with alcohol and drugs in their workplace, and that is something that did not happen in this case. So now, there's a concerning principle that arises from this case, and this is my opinion where the arbitrator here really takes a flight from reality. And that's in regards to the arbitrator's application of the proportionality test. And the arbitrator wrongfully concluded that simply because Teck Coal was achieving safety improvements as a result of other aspects of its robust health and safety program, that because of this, somehow the random testing would cease to be a proportional response. And this is irrational, unworkable, and unfortunately quite common in BC industrial jurisprudence in arbitrations because of the lack of industrial work in BC for a period of close to 20 years. We really got an old school mentality among arbitrators as it relates to health and safety in BC. And there's similarly a lack of industrial jurisprudence pertaining to the administration of rules that apply to safety sensitive positions or rules that apply in highly safety sensitive work sites in the province of BC. So the result of all this is the arbitrators, many arbitrators in BC, are about 15 years behind the times when it comes to administering safety rules and honoring the paramount importance of health and safety on work sites. And this increases the risk drastically in BC in terms of what kind of result you're going to get if employers have to defend themselves in front of arbitrators in administering their safety rules in the province. And what's more, the bigger risk, and the last time I checked, along the same industrial category, BC workers were 4 times more likely to get injured than the same Alberta workers. So this lackadaisical attitude and the lack of support for employers to develop and administer and enforce safety rules does have an impact in the worst way. And case in point, one that just really snapped my head back was an arbitration that I was involved with. And it was where arbitrator Ronald Karras determined that a Boilermaker out of Lodge 359, actually was the job steward, who was driving drunk on site, fishtailing in the dark, in his pickup truck. It was like a 3500 or 350, while speeding at 60 kilometers an hour in a 10 kilometer an hour zone to run away from security guards, didn't constitute a safety risk worthy of significant discipline. Now, on an Alberta safety sensitive worksite, this would have been a 30-second discussion. And it's quite baffling to have, it's telling that an arbitrator doesn't hold the paramount, the importance of safety in BC. And it's like we'd have to roll back the attitudes and behavior in Alberta 15 to 20 years to see that kind of response. But back to Teck Coal, the idea that because there's success in one area of a safety program, that would render the justification for a safety control in another area is irrational. It would be like if the Canada Own the Podium, Go for the Gold Own the Podium program, if they found that one training exercise was effective, then boy, they need to shut down this training exercise. It doesn't make sense. Safety is only going in one direction. The goal is zero. And the performance of the programs have to go up constantly, continuously improving. So the idea that a successful result out of one aspect of a health and safety program would somehow render random alcohol and drug testing all of a sudden a disproportionate response. The effectiveness in a health and safety program in controlling the safety sensitive nature of a job or a work site doesn't all of a sudden render that job or work site non-safety sensitive. and that's where this arbitrator's kind of I think really lost the direction, or went off path here. Is the nature of the work itself is still safety sensitive, and the workplace. And just because an employer is effective in reducing and controlling those risks, that doesn't actually reduce the need to control the risks. So I don't think that aspect of Teck Coal is going to be followed by other arbitrators, but it further emphasizes the need. It does further emphasize the need to have clear objective evidence in support of random drug testing. And we actually wrote an article about that, the evidentiary requirements, which I'll also post in the comments section if you want to read. And it's entitled "Don't Get Left Behind: Metrics Required to Justify Random Alcohol and Drug Testing." So I hope that this is useful to you, and that if you need some assistance in setting up alcohol and drug programs in BC, it's something that you'll definitely want to consult some of the players in BC. There's been some really good work done by industry associations, but also consult your legal resources as appropriate, or us. I mean, that is something that we have an interest in doing ourselves. Good day.